It would be foolish of me to assume that Ubisoft in any way saw my video about Ghost Recon Breakpoint's beta and decided to use my idea of adding an immersive mode. But although that would be foolish to say, my reviews of Breakpoint, my rants about Breakpoint got a fair amount of views, and I said there should be a mode that plays more like Wildlands, like a more hardcore version of Wildlands, that removes tiered loot and allows you to basically just play Wildlands 2.0, but with more survival features and all of the other new mechanics, you know, basically just the Wildlands experience ported over to a new game. And in my videos, I called it the, immersive mode. Sort of how Ghost Recon Wildlands had Ghost Mode, which limited your weapons, changed how the enemies behave, and only gave you one life to live. Ubisoft is kind of going above and beyond, and I haven't really covered the fact that Breakpoint is getting an overhaul, but the overhaul launches later today for me, and I wanted to talk about my thoughts. This gameplay is still really old. I just have it on my external hard drive. I did not buy the game, I do not own Breakpoint. I did not want to buy Breakpoint. The beta really disappointed me, and I didn't like the fact that they were basically making The Division 3 and calling it a Ghost Recon game. The looting mechanics weren't exactly at all essential to the gameplay of Wildlands or Breakpoint, and yet, here we are, with Wildlands getting a complete, practically a re-release. In my opinion, this is a re-release because many people agreed with me that Breakpoint is not what they wanted from Ghost Recon. Wildlands was hardly what some people wanted from Ghost Recon. And the sentiment that I shared that a lot of people agreed with was that Division was made for people that didn't like Wildlands, and Wildlands was for people that didn't want to play the Division. Of course, you could enjoy both, but even if you enjoy both types of games, can you really give me a reason why there needs to be Division 1, Division 2, Wildlands, and Breakpoint? Breakpoint being sort of a mix between Wildlands and Division? Why can't it be its own thing? Why can't Ghost Recon be its own thing away from the looter-shooter genre? Well, that's what the immersion mode is going to be in Breakpoint. The immersion mode is going to take away those Division-like elements and focus more on the tactical and survival elements of the game. The immersion mode will even allow you to switch your hub world to private so that there's not other players running around like Destiny's Tower. Instead, it'll only be your friends and story characters, no random players running in and out of your hub world. All of this, in my opinion, is fantastic, and in fact, it's how the game should have launched just by itself. There should have never been a tiered loot thing unless they wanted to add it a year down the road, once people maybe got bored of what the hell you play a Ghost Recon game for. You don't play a Ghost Recon game to grind for loot drops and worry about your weapon level. You might enjoy that, and that's great. I'm really glad that you enjoy that. If you're the guy out there watching this video thinking, well, I thought Breakpoint was fine. Fine, I'm glad that you could enjoy it. I genuinely am. I'm not just saying that. But arguably, or inarguably in my opinion, that's not what Ghost Recon is, and Ghost Recon fans, and more specifically Wildlands fans, were not expecting to get a Division-style experience with the name Ghost Recon slapped on it. It's like Ubisoft was just so thirsty for the success of other looter shooters to positively influence player retention and microtransaction sales in a game like Ghost Recon that they didn't even bother making a good looter shooter that actually makes your loot matter. They already did that in Division, which is a solid looter shooter, I guess, but if you didn't like that, they did it again with the Division 2. It's clear they just wanted that success that those games were seeing to influence Ghost Recon, because I imagine Wildlands didn't have the same player retention, because that underlying thing isn't there. You get an M4, it's your M4. You get attachments for it around the world, and then you have those attachments. You customize it for what you want it to do, and then you one-tap enemies in the head. That draws in a more specific crowd, and it's not really a crowd that sits and grinds games, tirelessly, hours upon hours of grinding, which is what something like Breakpoint wanted. It seemed like it wanted you to do, but again, the loot system wasn't so pronounced that you were really encouraged to do it. It was just a bad idea, because again, it's not a great looter shooter. People have told me, boom, it doesn't matter, the loot doesn't actually really affect things, your weapon level doesn't really affect too much. And my point still stands. Then why is it there? Just to muddy up my screen and my inventory? Just to make it feel like I'm not playing Ghost Recon anymore? That's a weak-ass argument. There can be 2 Division games and 2 Wildlands-style Ghost Recon games. You really don't need to merge that and meld the two. But I think it's funny that last year I said these exact words. All I can see now is Breakpoint either releasing a massive new game mode that doesn't feel like a looter shooter at all, and does my idea of like having an immersive game mode, or in 2 years when they make the next Ghost Recon game, they say something like, and this game is not a looter shooter, and they have to damage control 2 years later by releasing a game that people actually wanted 2 years prior. And now on March 24th, 2020, I'm here to say, well, thanks, I guess? So what's happening with the immersion mode? It's a part of the Ghost experience. You can either play the standard mode, the immersive mode, or you can customize different aspects of the game, and everyone in your squad can be playing a different version of the game, which is sort of weird. I hope that my friends and I sort of agree on a rule set to play with. It'd be kind of weird if my friends were playing a looter shooter while I was playing like a Ghost Recon game, but okay. But it was really my idea. I mean, I'm not saying they stole it, but I'm just saying they did exactly what I wish they would have done. You find weapons on enemies, you find weapons in crates at bases, you find enemies after defeating a boss. And then that's your weapon to do whatever you want with. You don't have to worry about its level, or different blueprints, or anything like that. It's your gun, and then the stats of that weapon, and how it handles, and what attachments it can and can't have, are what dictates whether or not you use it. What's interesting though about the blog post is it's not totally like Wildlands, so scavenging weapons with the gear level disabled makes it so that fallen enemies will drop weapons within the same category they were using, meaning that I believe that's still a random drop. So if they're using an LMG, they will drop an LMG, you know, so if they're using an M60, they just drop a random LMG for you. And you can swap it out for the one in your hands, and you can only carry a limited amount of weapons on you, which is sort of weird to me. I don't know what this is and what they mean by this, but blueprints still are a thing with the gear level disabled, not in regards to your level. It doesn't really matter when it comes to your level. You don't have to keep using the blueprint, you know, keep the weapon that you're using up with your current player level or anything like that, like you did in the launch version of the game. But blueprints allow you to equip specific weapons from the biovacs or the hub world, and this is sort of weird to me again, because how does that work? Do I have to buy the blueprint to have the gun, or do I find the weapon in the world and then I have the blueprint for it? Do I have to find the blueprint for a gun and then still go to my biovac or the hub world in order to use the gun, you know, and actually equip it? I don't know. This is sort of weird to me. I kind of just wish that enemies would drop guns the way they did in Wildlands, and frankly, to just make this a lot simpler and make this video shorter instead of going in depth here, just make it like Wildlands. Ubisoft, what is this? Like, you're basically saying that the weapons are still going to be random. It drops a weapon in the category they were using, okay? And you still have to worry about like getting a blueprint and then using it at a biovac or at the hub world. But how about this, Ubisoft? I go to a crate, I open it up, and there's an AK-47. I now have that AK-47, it's mine, I can switch to it whenever I want, go fuck yourself. How about that? I feel like they're really limiting the immersion mode because everybody can play their own separate version of the game at the same time, and your gear level, even if you have it disabled, is still being tracked in the background. So if your gear level is 1,000,000,001, and then you disable gear level, and then play for several hours, you'll come back and your gear level will be maybe 1,000,000,002. So you're still leveling up and progressing things, and it is tracking your gear level in the background. It's just not affecting the game until you enable it. Because of that, they can't just give you an inventory with every gun you've collected like Wildlands did. So this sort of sucks. This whole everybody can play their own version of Wildlands at the same time in your lobby thing is hurting the game at this point, and the ability to toggle it on and off randomly is also hurting the game. What you should be able to do is create a new save, and when you start it, like a Kingdom Hearts game, you get options for difficulties. You pick either immersive mode or standard mode. And then certain modifiers they've added that you can change now, like how many bandages do you have? Do you get wounded after every bullet? You can tweak those inside of your game. That's fine, because those are things that you might sort of regret. You don't want to get halfway through the game and then kind of regret your decision. But when it comes to the overarching immersion versus standard, those should be locked to your save file so the game can be a different game. Because the problem I had was the messy, complex, unnecessary bullshit that didn't need to exist. Wildlands was very simple, and I liked it a lot for that. In fact, my ideal version of Breakpoint would just be sort of Wildlands Ghost mode, but without permadeath, so I can sort of still goof around a bit, because then you could only change your weapon at a loadout station, and you could only pick one primary and one secondary. If I could just play an immersive mode, which would basically just be Wildlands style, where your weapons are found in crates, and then you just have them forever, your attachments are found, and you just have them forever. And then I could apply the modifier where I can only change my loadouts at certain loadout stations, and then I could make it so I only have one primary and one secondary, so I have to really define my role instead of just basically having an LMG and a sniper rifle, and then, oh, I'm in the middle of a gunfight, I'll switch to an assault rifle and an SMG or a shotgun or something. I would love to be able to play around with those modifiers in definitive game modes, but it sounds like immersive mode just disables the gear level and is still, at the end of the day, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Okay, so this video is messy because I was a little confused. In fact, halfway through recording this, I started reading up on things to sort of refresh my memory because I thought I had a better memory than I did when it came to this subject, but either way, I'm sort of just, puzzled? I like that they're doing this. They even named it the thing I wanted them to name it, so I am happy for this. Thank you, Ubisoft, for doing anything at all. But will this make me buy Ghost Recon Breakpoint? Probably not. It'll depend on a couple of different things. It'll depend on how well this video does, and what games I'm in the mood to play, and whether or not my friends are also willing to purchase the game. I am not buying Ghost Recon Breakpoint to play solo. Currently, I'm enjoying Modern Warfare, Doom Eternal, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Kingdom Hearts 2. Those are the games that I'm playing right now, and I'm sort of juggling around in my free time, in my recording time, and my streaming time. Adding a new game into the mix just because of this game mode, and this game mode doesn't exactly seem super well thought out from what I'm reading. I don't know, it just sort of rubs me the wrong way. I just spent $60 on Doom, you know, I don't really want to go around, you know, just buying games willy-nilly, especially when it's sort of unpredictable on this channel whether or not a game that I'm covering will actually net me any views, which, yeah, I'm sorry that might sound sort of greedy, but it's still like, if I'm spending money on Breakpoint, I would have to know you guys want to see me play it, because that would encourage me to play it and learn it, because otherwise it's another free time game, which I already have some free time games that I'm enjoying a lot right now. Also, Breakpoint's been out for a while. I don't know what I would cover when it comes to Breakpoint. I don't know what sort of information I could give. And it breaks my heart because I wanted them to do something, they're doing it. It's not exactly to my liking, but I appreciate the effort, but I just don't have any excitement for it. I wish that Ubisoft would make a definitive, co-op, open-world Ghost Recon game with the details and love that games like Metal Gear or Splinter Cell had. Instead of microtransactions and random loot drops, I want intricacies, I want in-depth interactable environments, I want a new engine that can handle tons of smart AI, surrounded by those interactable environments and objects that my friends and I can interact with simultaneously and work together to have some really amazing moments with awesome gadgets, weapons, and equipment, really good stealth mechanics where like your camouflage matters and, you know, how much light is around you matters. Stuff like that would be so awesome and so fun. But I'll end this 13-minute sort of tangent here. Breakpoint seems like a game that is trying right now to appeal to as many people as possible, even simultaneously. And I think the sort of obvious ramification of that decision is not a very good game. When have you ever played a game that people consider to be a masterpiece, a classic, high art, that is trying desperately to appeal to everybody at once? But I'll watch videos on the immersion mode, I'll watch some other smarter YouTubers cover it and talk about it, and I'll see what that's about. I'll see if my friends want to get it, I'll see how well this video does, and yeah. See you later, guys. I hope this video didn't come off too negative or too ranty. It went on for a while, but that's because I had a lot to say, and I had a lot to reiterate, because I wanted to make sure things are clear. Guys, I get criticized, and last little bit here, yeah, I'm still talking. Last little bit here, I do get criticized for talking too long, but I don't know, I made a very concise video about my opinions on Doom 2016, and what few people watched it seemed incredibly confused by it, even though I couldn't have been more clear on my position. So, I don't know, being concise doesn't help, and I like to reiterate things, and I like to sort of spell things out. And yes, YouTube values view time, so that sort of, I don't know. If you talk to me in person, you'll know that I just like to talk. And this is sort of a place where I use it as an outlet. I vent into this channel. I use it as a diary at sometimes. I don't know. Now I've definitely talked too long. I've had too much energy today, which is good, but it's also sort of fucking annoying. Anyway, I'll see you when I see you, and goodbye.